Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. Just going to do another of my In the News shows. I really wanted to also show off my new background. Got all my sponsors front and center. Really happy to be able to do this as they make these shows possible and all the work that I do possible. So I wanted to give them a shout out. Thank you very much for all your support. We've had some interesting few days with the situation with Silicon Valley Bank being bailed out. Well, at least the depositors were bailed out, and those that were uninsured got bailed out. I think that we're seeing the start of a pretty serious problem in that after this bailout happened on Monday, it happened over the weekend. Then on Monday, there was a bunch of saw a lot of the smaller banks seeing their stocks get hammered pretty hard. I think investors are concerned about them. And just today, I was reading that the big banks are seeing a significant amount of new customers depositing money into their accounts. And I think what you're seeing is that these smaller banks are, the customers are moving out of those small banks and moving into the larger banks. This was something I talked about on the weekend as, I thought that would for sure happen, and it's happening. And a lot of these smaller banks, I think, are in similar problems with as Silicon Valley Bank. And so this is going to cause a somewhat of a systemic problem. And I think what it's also going to do is prevent the Federal Reserve from raising interest rates at their next meeting. I think they're going to stop raising interest rates at their next meeting. And it won't be long before they start talking about the need to lower rates. Even Dr. Doom, Nouriel Roubini, who once called gold a barbarous relic. I saw a show with him the other day, an interview with him the other day on Daniel Camboni's show on Stansberry Research. And Nouriel Roubini, she asked him, well, with all these problems that are happening, what do you think are the best places for people to park their money? One of them obviously was in cash. I would think that cash is going to be in the big banks. A second thing he talked about was short-term treasuries, because they're giving you a pretty good yield right now. And then the other was to put it into gold. For Nouriel Roubini to be bullish on gold is quite surprising. I think that not only is gold a good parking spot, I think also silver, especially, as well as copper, maybe other commodities, because these are the things that we need to make our lives happen. We hear a lot about tech stocks and technology and all these other things, but the reality is that without what's mined, you can't have electronic vehicles. You can't get the power to them. Your fridge, your stove, your computer, your telephone, your car, everything needs raw materials, commodities that come out of the ground. And I also heard not too long ago, Robert Friedland saying that we're coming into a time of the revenge of the miners. I think that's a very good way of putting it, and I think he's dead on the money. For too long, decades now, there's been underinvestment in finding and developing new mines to replace the old mines. It's gotten to such a serious point that, right now, comparing what is being mined every year in gold compared to what's being found every year in gold, you're only replacing about 25% of what's produced every year. Sooner or later, that's going to catch up to the supply-demand story in gold. But you're not just seeing that in gold. You're seeing that in copper. You're seeing that in silver. You're seeing that in zinc. You're seeing that in lithium. You're seeing it in all kinds of commodity or metals that are crucial to our everyday lives. And so I think that we are heading into that trend of revenge of the miners. I also heard recently Ross Beatty. He was talking about from Equinox, and he's a very smart guy. He was talking in January that he's never in his career seen where all the elements on the periodic table are in such good supply and demand stories and primed to go much higher. So whether you're looking at precious metals or base metals, I think that those are much better places for investors to park their money than in stocks. For example, Wall Street stocks are pretty stretched on their valuations. Long-term treasuries are not, long-term debt is not attractive. The US dollar, when the Federal Reserve is lowering interest rates, the US dollar is not going to be that strong an asset to own. You could look at other currencies, but I would stick to the currencies that the countries have a lot of exposure to mining, such as Canada, Australia, Mexico, and plenty of other countries. I think that those currencies will outperform the US dollar. But when it all comes down to it, gold, silver, and other metals are a heck of a good place. And when you look at the valuations of the stocks, you're seeing valuations that I haven't seen since back in the year 2000. Back then, the valuations were at record lows, and we're right back to that 2022. We got back to that. It started to improve after November. Gold, silver, copper, and other metals started to do a lot better. But then in February, the US dollar started to a counter trend rally. Its bear market really started in late September, but then it had a counter trend rally in February, which pushed down the price of copper, gold, silver, other commodities. And the stocks got beaten down even more. So they're right back to the level in valuations that they were prior to the bull market starting in November, early November. But I think that the counter trend, bearish trend for gold is over, and silver and other commodities. And I think that they're going to head a lot higher. So I happen to believe that a good parking spot for, once once consumers get their money out of the small banks, then they got to see where they're going to invest their money. And right now, I think a good place is gold and silver, copper, other metals, zinc, lithium, and for the electric vehicle revolution. And even if you think that the economy is going to slow down, I think that it won't be long before the Federal Reserve starts to stimulate again with lower interest rates. And that's going to be very positive for electric vehicles. So having exposure to precious metals as well as the metals that are important for the electric vehicle revolution, I think is going to pay off very handsomely for investors. So that's sort of my take on this whole Silicon Valley bank bailout and what's going on. So now I'm going to switch over and do some, I'm going to talk about some companies that had news out. Let me just pull this up here for you. I'll do a share screen. One of the companies that I recently made a pick is a company called Golden Ridge. And Golden Ridge announced yesterday that they intercepted high-grade and disseminated mineralization, including 0.5 meters of 50.5 grams of gold in hole WIL 22-14 and 37.8 grams or meters of 0.7 grams per ton gold in WIL 22-12. And this was from their maiden drill program on the Williams Gold Project. This is is to the south of Newfound Gold's big Queensway South gold property. Why I interviewed their management and made them a pick was because at Newfound Gold, where they found all their high-grade gold is in an area that's on either side of the Appleton Fault. And in these orogenic gold systems, those deep crustal faults are very important. That fault continues down through Golden Ridge's property, and at Golden Ridge property, they've got an area very similar to the area that Newfound Gold has made all their big discoveries of concentration of gold occurrences right at the surface. And so they went in there with a scout drill program. They did 29 holes for a total of 4,186 meters. They intercepted visible gold in that hole 14. That came back with the 50 grams over a half a meter. They talked about the Appleton Fault corridor within the property shows broad intervals of alteration and sulfide mineralization. These are good signs that they've got a big gold mineralizing system. They said that the inaugural drilling at Williams has consistently intersected near surface gold mineralization in multiple zones. So not only were they doing initial scout drilling, they were also shallow holes. And so to find those kind of grades at the top of an orogenic gold system is a very exciting event. Unfortunately, the stock didn't show that, but I think the market was expecting probably something that was unreasonable. Mike Blady, who's the CEO and director of Golden Ridge, stated, and I quote, "Initial results from the first 14 holes at the Williams Gold Project property show robust gold mineralization with multiple fault systems. Golden Ridge is very excited to see the strong correlation between gold in soil anomalies and gold mineralization observed in core. Intersecting visible gold in the maiden program demonstrates the fertile nature of the property. Broad intervals of shallow mineralization also suggest that the potential for larger mineralized systems along strike and at depth. Relative to our peers in the area, I think we are off to an exceptional start, and we are eagerly awaiting results from the remaining 15 holes testing multiple zones within our 4-kilometer swath of the Appleton Fault corridor at the Williams Gold property," end quote. So for me, what I find the most impressive, oh, by the way, here's a good map. So you see up here in Newfound Gold, they had all of these gold occurrences, and that's where they've made all of their gold discoveries. Down here, you look at the Williams property, and again, a high concentration of gold occurrences on either side of the Appleton Fault. I think this is an exceptional project, and for them to already be tagging, there's some sulfides, these little round circles are visible gold. Here's a magnified version of that visible gold. And, you know, for them to be so early in scout drilling and already hit these bonanza grades of gold right at the top of the system, I think is very exceptional. And I really think that the company has an excellent future. I'm going to be watching closely for the next 15 holes and then their next rounds of drilling. They have a very tiny valuation, and yet they're sitting beside a company that has close to $1 billion valuation. You know, and it's got all the similarities with the same structural fault going through the deep crack in the earth, and then secondary faulting coming off of it. And then you've got these gold, a concentration of a bunch of gold occurrences Again, I think Golden Ridge has a bright future in Newfoundland, and I think it's not too long from now that they'll be clipping on the heels of Newfound Gold. Another company that had news out is SilverCrest. I'm a big fan of this company. I think if you're looking for a company that is a producer, so if you think gold and silver are going to go up, I think that this, and you want less risk, SilverCrest is a good option. As they say in their 2022 financial highlights, they completed the Las Chispas mine construction at the end of May 2022 for 133 million, 4.7 million below the 2021 feasibility study. That's no small feat because they were dealing with the COVID crisis during that period. In Q3 2022, the first revenue from the sale of precious metals was recorded. It had revenue of 43 million from the sale of 11,000 ounces of gold and 1.1 million ounces of silver. At the end of December, there were also 3,600 ounces of gold and 0.32 million ounces of silver as finished goods inventory in the process to be defined. So that's not calculated yet. During 2022, they generated mine operating income of 28.4 million. Completed a corporate debt refinancing in November. That's when they actually turned on the commercial production. Operating highlights, you can go through a bunch of that. But the bottom line is they had very good news out. And Eric Fear, who's the CEO, commented, and I quote, "We are very pleased with the operating and financial performance of the Las Chispas mine since achieving commercial production in Q4 2022. During ramp-up, we exceeded many of the 2021 feasibility study targets, including process plant recoveries, plant availability, and the target date to declare commercial production, which led to an outperformance of recovered ounces in 2022. This successful ramp-up of the operation generated 28.4 million of mine operating income in 2022. Those are US dollars, which were, when combined with our strong financial position, allowed for the reduction of our debt outstanding by 40 million. Subsequent to the end of 2022, and based on continued strong cash flow generation, we prepaid a further 15 million of debt in March 2023, reducing our outstanding term loan to 35 million. We remain focused on continuing to optimize the operation and deliver an updated technical report in Q2 2023, which will form the basis for updated cost and production guidance. So really good information out of a brand new mine that just started commercial production in November. Now, it often takes a couple quarters for the number crunchers at the big institutions to really wrap their head around how well they're doing. And as that happens, it gives the investors an opportunity to get in there before the institutions. I think the institutions are going to be coming in a big way. And I think SilverCrest is a great opportunity for investors. Okay, the final company I'm going to talk about today is Faraday Copper. They announced that they hit 100 meters at 0.69% copper at the Copper Creek project in Arizona. Highlights intersected, as I said, the 100 meters. From 34 meters at the Breccia and drill FCD 22012, approximately 85 meters of this intersection are outside the pit shell used to constrain the mineral resource estimate and provide the potential to increase to the current open pit resource. Mineralization opens at depth and to the southwest. They intersected 8.32 meters at a 1.62% copper and 2.54 grams of silver from 5.64 meters, so right at the surface, 9.64 meters at 0.33% copper, and 1.15 grams per ton silver from 110 meters. Both intersections are located outside of the maiden mineral resource estimate and demonstrate that the area north of Copper Giant remains prospective. Paul Harbridge, who is the president and CEO, commented, and I quote, "This is one of the most exciting results from our phase 2 drill program, as it continues to demonstrate the potential to expand the open pit mineral resource. Importantly, mineralization remains open. This result is extremely encouraging for the growth potential of the Copper Creek project," end quote. So down here, you can see better what he's talking about. So here's the pit outline that you can see in red there. And then look at all of this high-grade material that now falls underneath that pit design. What will end up happening is they're probably going to increase that pit size, and it remains open. So maybe they come down at this angle over here and start dropping it down further, because they're going to definitely want to get this material into the mineral resource and be looking at running the economics on that, because that's excellent distribution of the copper mineralization and the other metals that are included in there. Here's their various different deposits. And as you can, or breccias, and as you can see here, this is all focused on this Copper Giant target area. So it looks like there's an expansion there potential in a significant way. Faraday Copper is a new pick of mine that I made in February. I think they've got a heck of a good future ahead of them. Big fan of copper, obviously. And if for investors that are looking for a growth story in the copper exploration sector, Faraday Copper is a good one for you to look at. Alrighty, so yeah, there you go. There's the news for today. All of these sponsors that you can now see clearly whenever I talk about information and shows. You can see all the companies that help bring these shows to you. I'm very thankful because I love doing these shows and helping investors to find excellent companies to do their homework on. And as always, my shows are for information purposes only. It's important for you to do your homework, speak with your financial advisors to assess whether these companies are in your risk profile. And I really believe strongly in that doing your homework part. Of the three companies I talked about today, one of them I've done interview with their CEO, Mike Blady. All of the companies that are sponsors of my shows, I've done interviews with their management. And you can find that on my YouTube channel. Just go to Rocks and Stocks News, search for Rocks and Stocks News on YouTube, or use my Substack. You can find that at rocksandstocks.substack.com. On that note, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.